Hey everyone, welcome back. Glad you're here. If you've ever picked up a handgun and felt your wrist get tired after just a few shots, or noticed the recoil pulling the sights off target faster than you can recover, this video is for you. As we get older, weight and recoil stop being abstract specs on a chart and start becoming very real limits on how long we can shoot comfortably and confidently. A lot of senior gun lists focus only on controls or slide effort. That matters, but it's only part of the story. What really wears people down is holding a firearm that's just a little too heavy, or managing recoil that keeps stacking shot after shot. Fatigue sets in, accuracy drops, and practice becomes something you avoid instead of enjoy. So today, we're taking a different approach. This is Top 7 Senior-Friendly Firearms with Lightweight and Low Recoil. Every gun on this list earns its spot because it's easier on the hands, wrists, and shoulders, not because it looks good on paper. I'll walk through why each one works, where the trade-offs are, and who it actually makes sense for. Let's get into it. Let's start with the lightest recoil option on this list, because for many seniors, recoil is the first wall they hit. Not slide manipulation, not capacity, recoil. Once the gun starts snapping the wrist, everything else goes downhill fast. The Glock 44 is chambered in .22 LR, and unloaded, it weighs roughly 12.6 ounces. That low weight, combined with the rimfire cartridge, means recoil is almost non-existent. The gun uses a simple blowback system, so there's no locking barrel and no heavy recoil spring fighting your hands. The slide is easy to move, and it locks open after the last round, which matters for anyone dealing with weak grip strength or limited dexterity. The magazine holds 10 rounds, and loading is straightforward, especially if you pair it with a basic mag loader, which I consider mandatory gear for senior shooters regardless of caliber. From a shooting standpoint, the Glock 44 allows you to stay relaxed. You're not bracing for impact, and you're not rushing follow-up shots. That calm, predictable impulse is what keeps people practicing instead of quitting. Now, there are trade-offs, and they need to be said out loud. Rimfire ammunition is less reliable than centerfire, and shot placement matters more. This is not a power-focused solution, it's a control-focused one. If your priority is keeping recoil to an absolute minimum and staying comfortable through an entire practice session, the Glock 44 earns its place here. It's not about settling, it's about choosing something you can actually run well. For some seniors, the real issue isn't recoil by itself, it's everything that comes before the shot. Racking a slide, clearing a malfunction, or dealing with stiff magazines can feel like unnecessary barriers. That's where a lightweight revolver still makes a lot of sense. The Ruger LCR is a double-action-only revolver, most commonly chambered in .38 Special, and it weighs about 13.5 ounces unloaded. There's no slide to rack, no magazine to seat, and no question about whether the gun is in battery. You load the cylinder, close it, and it fires every time you pull the trigger. What sets the LCR apart from older steel revolvers is its cammed trigger system. The trigger pull is long, but it's smoother and more consistent than most traditional designs. That smoothness matters when hand strength is limited. Recoil, on the other hand, is sharp but brief. The gun is light, so you feel it, but it doesn't stack or fatigue the wrist the way snappier semi-autos sometimes do. Capacity is limited to 5 rounds, and reloads are slow. Those are real downsides. This isn't a high-volume shooting solution, and it's not meant to be. But for seniors who value simplicity above everything else, especially those who shoot one-handed or struggle with fine motor tasks, the Ruger LCR offers something very few semi-autos can: minimal steps between decision and shot. And for the right person, that simplicity is exactly what makes it effective. When the priority shifts from recoil alone to overall weight, things get more complicated. A lighter gun is easier to hold, but that same lightness can also make recoil feel sharper. The Smith & Wesson Bodyguard 2.0 sits right in the middle of that trade-off, and that's why it belongs on this list. The Bodyguard 2.0 is chambered in .380 ACP, and it's built to be genuinely lightweight. Compared to many compact pistols, it's noticeably easier to keep up at eye level without fatigue setting in. Magazine options give you 10+1 or 12+1 rounds, which is more capacity than most ultralight .380 pistols. It also locks open after the last round, an important detail for seniors who want clear feedback that the gun is empty. Recoil is where honesty matters. This is not a soft shooting pistol in the way a heavier gun is. The locked breech design helps, but the light frame means recoil feels quick and snappy. The upside is that it's predictable. After a few magazines, most shooters adapt to the rhythm, especially when focusing on controlled pairs rather than rapid fire. From an arthritis and weakness standpoint, the slide effort is reasonable, but this is not an EZ class pistol. A magazine loader makes a noticeable difference here, and I'd strongly recommend one for regular use. The grip is compact, which works well for smaller hands, but can feel busy for shooters with larger palms. The Bodyguard 2.0 makes sense if your biggest struggle is simply holding a heavier gun steady. It's not the most forgiving option here, but when lightweight comes first, this is a realistic and capable choice. Moving into 9mm usually means accepting more recoil and more effort, but the Walther CCP M2 is designed to soften both. Instead of relying on a traditional locked breech system, it uses Walther's soft-coil gas-delayed blowback, and that changes how the gun feels from the very first shot. The CCP M2 is chambered in 9mm, has a 3.54-inch barrel, and holds 8+1 rounds. Unloaded weight comes in at around 22 ounces, which is light enough to manage, but heavy enough to help absorb recoil. The slide requires noticeably less force to rack than most 9mm pistols, and it locks open after the last round, making chamber checks and reloads less demanding. Where this gun really stands out is recoil impulse. Instead of a sharp snap, recoil feels stretched out and smoother. That matters for seniors dealing with wrist pain or reduced strength, because the gun doesn't feel like it's fighting you. Follow-up shots stay flatter, and fatigue builds more slowly over a practice session. There are trade-offs. Gas-delayed systems can be more sensitive to ammunition choice, and the barrel heats up faster than on conventional designs. The manual safety is also a personal preference. Some shooters appreciate it, others don't want the extra step. If you want a 9mm that respects limited hand strength and reduces recoil without jumping to a much heavier gun, the Walther CCP M2 offers a thoughtful mechanical solution. It's not a compromise, it's a different approach. When people talk about senior-friendly pistols, the Shield EZ comes up for a reason. This gun wasn't adapted from an existing platform. It was built specifically around reduced hand strength, and that shows the moment you handle it. The Shield EZ is available in 9mm, and in this context, that matters. You're getting a cartridge that many shooters already trust, without the usual fight that comes with racking a compact 9mm slide. Smith & Wesson intentionally reduced slide force, and combined it with magazines that use loading assist tabs, making both chambering and loading noticeably easier. Capacity is 8+1 rounds, and the slide locks open after the last shot, which is a big confidence booster for shooters dealing with arthritis or weakness. Recoil control sits in a sweet spot. The EZ isn't ultra-light, but it's light enough to manage without fatigue, while still having enough mass to keep recoil from getting harsh. The grip safety also plays a role here. Instead of demanding fine motor control like a small thumb safety, it disengages naturally when you grip the gun, which reduces mental and physical effort under stress. There are limitations. Capacity is lower than some newer designs, and the grip can feel slightly large for shooters with very small hands. Recoil in the 9mm version is manageable, but not as soft as a .22 or .380. Where the Shield EZ earns this spot is balance. It doesn't chase extreme lightness at the cost of shootability. For seniors who want a familiar caliber, low-effort operation, and predictable recoil, this pistol still sets a very high standard. The Smith & Wesson Equalizer takes the ideas behind the Shield EZ and pushes them further, especially for shooters thinking long-term. This isn't the lightest gun on the list, but it earns its place because it reduces fatigue in a different way. Chambered in 9mm, the Equalizer uses the same easy-to-rack approach as the EZ, but pairs it with 10, 13, and 15-round magazines. That higher capacity matters more than it sounds. Fewer reloads mean fewer times you need to rack the slide or manipulate the gun, something seniors notice quickly during extended sessions. Unloaded weight is around 23 ounces, which gives the pistol enough mass to tame recoil without becoming tiring to hold. Recoil feels flatter and more controlled than most lightweight 9mm pistols. The grip texture provides security without being abrasive, and the trigger remains consistent from shot to shot. The slide locks open after the last round, and the gun is optics ready, which directly helps shooters dealing with aging eyesight by reducing the need for precise sight alignment. The trade-off is size. This isn't a micro pistol, and shooters looking for the absolute lightest option may find it slightly heavier than ideal. But that extra weight is doing work. It's absorbing recoil and reducing strain over time. The Equalizer makes sense for seniors who want something that stays comfortable not just for 5 rounds, but for an entire practice session. It's a pistol designed to remain manageable as strength and vision change. And that adaptability is why it ranks this high. For a lot of senior shooters, the goal isn't shooting faster or harder. It's shooting less often, less racking, less reloading, and less physical strain between shots. That's exactly why the Ruger Security 380 takes the top spot on this list. The Security 380 is chambered in 380 ACP and built around Ruger's light rack system, which noticeably reduces the effort needed to chamber a round. Unloaded, it weighs about 20 ounces, light enough to hold comfortably, but heavy enough to soak up recoil. Capacity is a major advantage here. 15 plus 1 rounds. That means fewer reloads and fewer times you need to manipulate the slide, which matters a lot for shooters dealing with arthritis or weakness. Recoil is where this pistol really shines. The combination of 380 ACP and moderate weight produces a soft, predictable recoil impulse. It doesn't snap the wrist or force you to reset your grip between shots. The slide locks open after the last round, giving clear confirmation that the gun is empty, an underrated but important safety feature for seniors. From a usability standpoint, everything works together. The grip is large enough to spread recoil across the hand, the controls are easy to reach, and magazine loading is noticeably easier than on many compact pistols, especially when paired with a basic mag loader, which I strongly recommend for any senior shooter. This isn't the smallest or lightest gun here, but it's the one that asks the least from your hands over time. Less recoil, fewer reloads, and less strain add up quickly. And that's why the Ruger Security 380 earns the #1 spot. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. If this list helped you think more clearly about what actually feels manageable in your hands, give the video a like. It really helps more people find it. And if you want more straightforward, senior-focused firearm content without hype or brand bias, consider subscribing. If you have real experience with any of these firearms, or you think there's one that deserves a spot in a future video, drop a comment below. I read them, and they do shape what comes next. Stay safe, take care of your hands, and I'll see you in the next one.